All right, at the end of the last video, I told you to write zero product property and then leave a space because I wanted us to go over how to solve quadratics, but I didn't want to do it all at once. So we factored first, and then I was leaving this for the next video, which is this one. So zero product property says that if A times B equals 0, then A might equal 0, or B might equal 0, or both might equal 0. So when you're multiplying two numbers together to get 0, at least one of them has to equal 0. And the zero product property is how we solve a quadratic that has been factored, or really any polynomial that has been factored. So for our first example, we're going to say that we are solving by factoring. And we'll say that the equation we have is x squared minus 3x minus 28 equals 0. So the first step whenever we're solving by factoring is to make sure that if you have a quadratic equation that it equals 0, and if it doesn't equal 0, then you have to make it equal 0. This one started exactly where we wanted, so now we just have to go through the process of factoring. So this is a pretty simple trinomial. It does not have a number in the front, so there's no GCF. It's not a slide divide problem or a box problem. And so I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 28 and add to negative 3. And the two numbers that would do that would be 7 and 4. The 7 should be the negative number. So negative 7 and positive 4. And so in parentheses, that means I've got x minus 7, x plus 4 equals 0. So what we have is we have this, something that represents a number, multiplied by something else that represents a number equals 0. So this is the first number, this is the second number. So I'm going to say the zero product property tells me that either x minus 7 equals 0, or x plus 4 equals 0, or they both equal 0. And so when we do the zero product property, we're kind of assuming that both of them equal 0. So I can go ahead and add 7 to the other side. X equals 7. I can minus 4, x equals negative 4. So this is where a lot of you guys have learned this before, the zero product property. You might not have called it that, but you've definitely learned this idea before when you learned factoring and solving for the first time. And so a lot of you guys started to internalize that you do the opposite sign. If it says x minus 7, positive 7 is your answer. If it says x plus 4, negative 4 is your answer. And a lot of people do not show this work, they just go straight to the answer, and that's totally fine. All right, here's the second example. So we're going to have 10x squared minus 3x equals 8x plus 8. So the first one started off equaling 0 already. The second one does not equal 0. So the first thing we have to do is move everything to one side so that it will equal 0. Anytime I'm solving by factoring, I like for my x squared term to be positive. So I'm going to go ahead and move everything to the left side. So my right side equals 0. All that stuff is zeroed out right here. I've got the 10x squared. Those make negative 11x. And then I have that negative 8 just kind of hanging out that didn't go with anything else. All right, so with this problem, we have to choose the method of factoring that we're going to do. 10 and 11 don't have a GCF. This is not a difference of squares problem because it has 3 terms. So since it's not a GCF problem, it's not a difference of squares problem, that means we're looking at slide divide or box. So I'm looking for the 10 slides to the negative 8. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 80 but add to negative 11. And that can be kind of difficult for us to come up with. So what I'm going to do is in my calculator, I'm going to say negative 80 divided by x. And now if I look at the graph, not the graph, but the table. So if I do second graph and look at the table, those are all my options. So all of these multiply to negative 80. I'm looking for the one that adds to negative 11. And that would be 5 and negative 16. All right. So with the slide divide method, I would say x plus 5, x minus 16. If you want to go ahead and do the box method, that's totally fine. So 10x squared, 5x, negative 16x, negative 8. That's totally fine. So I slide the 10 over to the 8, I figure out my numbers. Now I need to divide by the number that's in front. And I need to simplify those fractions. So 5 over 10 becomes 1 over 2. 16 over 10 becomes 8 over 5. And then whichever parts are still left as fractions, I can go ahead and bottoms up. So the 2 is going to move up to the front. The 5 is going to move up to the front. All right, so I've got these two factors equal 0. So again, the zero product property says if I have one number times another number equals 0, then the first number could equal 0, or the second number could equal 0, or they both could equal 0. So I'll go ahead and solve for x. So the first solution, x equals negative 1/2. And the second solution is 8/5. I would typically leave them as a fraction because I'm being lazy. I don't feel like getting my calculator out again. But if you wanted to type these in your calculator and write the decimals, I'm okay with writing the decimals. That's fine. So whenever I am factoring to solve, I would always say keep the x squared term positive. I would do that because it makes it easier to factor the problem.